Time to take a look at what's grabbing headlines around the world. And Florence Villeminot is back on set with me. Hi, Flo. And we're going to start stateside. President Donald Trump in the spotlight once again, this time for reportedly revealing highly classified information to Russian officials last week.
Let's take a look at the Washington Post, because they were the first to talk about that story. Now, reportedly, this happened during a very controversial meeting last week. You might remember we were already talking about this meeting in the press review. It was a meeting between Donald Trump and Russian officials in the Oval Office, where the U.S. media were not, they basically weren't invited to this meeting. Now, according to this article in the Washington Post, which quotes current and former U.S. officials, at one point, Donald Trump went off script. That's a quote from the article. Essentially, he shared classified intelligence on an ISIS plot. Now, you have to keep in mind the U.S. president has broad authority when it comes to declassifying government secrets. So there's nothing illegal about this, but it's highly controversial. And according to the Washington Post, it's a potential blow to a very sensitive intelligence sharing agreement.
OK, well, other newspapers are also picking up on this Washington Post story. The website BuzzFeed has more details on the fallout.
Sure, it sure does. Now, keep in mind the White House, has denied this Washington Post article, says it's false, no intelligence was shared. But according to BuzzFeed, there was a whole lot of yelling going on in the White House. To quote the article, it says, as news of the revelations spread on Monday, top administration's officials huddled in the White House, where reporters could hear yelling emanating from the presidential residence. And the article goes on to describe that some White House staff actually turned up the volume on their televisions so that reporters couldn't hear the yelling.
Ooh-wee. OK, well, this latest story comes as the president faces rising legal and political pressure on multiple Russia-related fronts.
And all this has many White House administrators reeling. You just got a sneak peek of that in the BuzzFeed article. There's another good article in the Daily Beast today that has even more details, talking about how some officials actually were hiding. They tried to avoid journalists in the wake of those revelations. There's some interesting in the bushes, or even just in the White House. This article has some interesting quotes. With news like this, I'm beginning to wonder why Trump ran in the first place. If he really cares about the country, I miss candidate Trump. Now he's just a pathetic mess. So that's a quote from a White House official. This is a former FBI official, says, I don't think he shared the classified intelligence to collude with Russia. I think he shared because he thinks he's playing chess, but he's actually playing checkers. International affairs is not like buying a golf course.
OK, well, moving on to another top story today. Yesterday, French President Emmanuel Macron met with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. He got a warm welcome for his first official trip abroad.
He got a warm welcome in the press as well. Let's take a look at the front page of Der Tagesspiegel. They have a front page, a headline in French, Bienvenue, welcome. Now, apparently there was quite an enthusiastic crowd. You can see it there behind them. Die Welt says this is a new honeymoon for Franco-German relations. And indeed, that is what the German Chancellor said yesterday. Apparently, she quoted the German author Hermann Hesse and said, the first weeks of a new relationship are magical. She went on to say, though, that she is very pragmatic. And after the magic fades away, she will be demanding results from France.
OK, well, Merkel may think she's the one calling the shots. However, some papers say that she actually owes Macron quite a lot.
There's actually an article in The Guardian today that says just that. It says Merkel is in Macron's debt. He is rescuing her vision of Europe. And there's a cartoon in this article, I hope we'll be able to see it, there it is, where you can see this French buoy, buoy with the French flag on it, being thrown out to sea to save the European Union. This new Franco-German partnership could reinvigorate both countries, but there could be some major obstacles ahead, of course. Let's take a look at another cartoon. This is actually by a Dutch cartoonist, Cheered. You can see this cartoon in Courrier International. Very confident-looking Macron there,
I like this cartoon.
skipping into the woods like the Little Red Riding Hood, but you can see some very menacing wolf eyes in those woods.
OK, Flo, let's move on to Ivory Coast now. The Minister of Defence claims to have reached a deal with soldiers involved in that 4-day revolt over pay.
You can read all about it in the state-run paper Fraternité Matin. It talks about that deal, even though it doesn't give any details, and do keep in mind that spokesmen from the rebels insist there is no agreement. There's some interesting analysis coming from Le Jelly, which is a Ghanaian information site that often has good articles about Ivory Coast. You can see here they're hoping that this is indeed a deal. Hope it's the last one, because this is indeed what Ivorians themselves deserve. They do not deserve to be living in the panic and fear that's been imposed on them since last Friday. But let's end on somewhat of a lighter note. Of course, the Cannes Film Festival is kicking off tomorrow. That's the day another festival ends. This is the Gaza Film Festival, much less known. This is their third edition this year. Fascinating report here in Libération that says it's a cultural dream and a political nightmare. Of course, there are countless obstacles coming from, of course, Israeli authorities, as you might imagine, but also authorities in Gaza, Hamas, which apparently have also put up some obstacles. But they're very proud of this mini miracle, which is that festival.
Okay, Flo, thank you so much for that.